Welcome to Recap Roundup, where we take a look at the 5 best recaps of the past day. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. So our first film comes from Recaps a Minute. It's called Hell Hath No Fury, and this is a World War II action film, and it's basically from the perspective of a woman, which kind of makes it really interesting, but it's still like a really action-packed movie. So the movie takes place where you have a woman who's a boyfriend of a former Nazi SS officer, and she's implicated in some stolen gold from the Nazis. We see the story start where she's captured by the French resistance, and then she's taken by the American soldiers to see where the gold was stolen. There's a lot of great, exciting twists in the story, and it's a lot like The Dirty Dozen or Inglourious Basterds. So if you're definitely into those kind of World War II action movies, but you want to see it from a kind of different perspective, this is definitely an awesome recap to check out, and I think I may actually check out this movie. So if you want to go ahead and check out the recap, go ahead and click on the link in the description below. This next film comes from Let Me Recap, and it's an Australian film called The Reef. And this is actually based on a true story, and it's about a deadly shark attack that takes place off of the coast of Indonesia. And the cool thing about this movie is that it's a very simple, straightforward story. It's about 3 people who go on this boat, and they end up getting attacked by sharks. Now, this is kind of reminiscent of Jaws and another great movie called Open Sea or Open Water. Very straightforward movie, not a lot of character development, but you know, when you have people versus a shark, you don't need much character development anyway. But the recap is kind of interesting. I don't know if I'll see this movie because I feel like I've seen, you know, Jaws and Open Water and other shark movies before. But the great thing about the recap is you kind of get the whole movie experience without having to actually watch the movie, which is really sometimes what's really cool about a lot of these recaps. So if you want to check this movie, the link is in the description below. This next film comes from the channel Filologist, and it's called Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. And as you can guess, this is a zombie movie, but it's more of a comedy than an outright horror movie. So if you're into horror, but you don't want to be like really scared too much and you want a couple of laughs, there's definitely a cool recap to check out. So basically the story surrounds 3 Boy Scouts as a zombie apocalypse breaks out, and there's a beautiful girl involved, so that kind of makes the story more interesting. Kind of a lot of funny sight gags that makes this recap really worth watching. Not much in the way of plot development, but you don't really need a plot development when you have a zombie movie that involves a lot of comedy. But it's a lot of cool sight gags, that enough that I think this is definitely, if you watch the recap and enjoy it, you may want to check out the movie. But again, the movie is called The Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and the link is in the description below. This next recap comes from Storyflix Movie REcaps, and it's called She's from Another Planet, and this is a Korean fantasy movie, and it's about mermaids, so it's kind of interesting. If you watch the movie Splash back from 1982, then you'll be very familiar with this story. It's about a mermaid who finds herself on the land after one of her scales was damaged. And the twist here, instead of it being a romance between a man and a mermaid, it's actually a romance between 2 young women and a mermaid. So this is, first thing I gotta say about this recap is that this film looks very beautifully shot, and the recap is done really well, so you can definitely follow the whole story. Obviously, since the movie's in Korean, it's very easy to follow with the recap. Very funny scenes and very well shot and nicely made. And I definitely think if you're into comedies and you're into fantasy and something a little light, not some heavy drama or something, you definitely like this movie. So again, it's called She's from Another Planet, and the link to the recap is in the description below. Our final recap comes from Film Recap, and it's a 2003 psychological thriller called Gothica. This is a very interesting movie. I actually saw this when it was out in the theater way back when, and it stars Halle Berry. She plays a psychiatrist who works at a psych prison ward. And the story here is that she has her husband who also works at the psych prison ward. And one day she has this really horrible nightmare where she breaks down in a car after almost hitting somebody, and she sees this woman get lit on fire, and then she wakes up to find herself inside the psych ward where she's been told that there's been a brutal axe murder and her husband is dead, and she is suspected as being the killer, and now she is trapped in the psych ward with a lot of the patients that she had been working with. So it's a very interesting movie. If you're into psychological thrillers, I think you'll definitely like this movie. The recap does a really great job of telling the whole story, which can kind of be complex at times. So definitely check out Gothica. The link to the recap is in the description below. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Recap Roundup. Be sure to subscribe and check back every day. Turn on notifications to see the latest film recaps.